Hello and welcome everyone to another DNA company webinar. I was going to say DNA University because we have those too. So, hi, my name is Dr. Lara Varden. I am Dean of the DNA University and an in-house clinician here at the DNA company. And we're so glad that you joined us today. And what's really interesting, we have a special topic, something definitely out of the norm that we've usually covered. And I'm going to start off by saying, I'm sure everyone has heard the phrase that the eyes are the windows to the soul. But have you ever thought that your gut health could be linked to your eyes? I mean, I know it sounds really unusual, but the body, besides being so incredibly elegant and amazing, is far more interconnected than we could even ever imagine. And it's very interesting because what shows up in your eyes might actually reflect what's going on deep inside of you, not just soul wise, but body wise, from your genes to your gut. And I have the honor of introducing you tonight to one of our newest in-house clinicians, Jessica Halpern. Hello, how are you today?
Hi, so nice to be here. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Well, I'll tell you, I just love Jessica. We have gotten to spend a lot of virtual time together. Absolutely brilliant. And she is what you would call an iridologist. And you're probably going, what the heck is that? Well, we're going to dive into that. We're going to be finding out more about iridology, how that works into and can give information about your genes, your gut, and your overall health and a bunch of details. And she's got such a cool picture to share of an eyeball. And we're going to dive into that. It's really, really amazing. And so I do want to say, make sure if you haven't already, please fill out that poll questionnaire. We really want to know, what you want to know, what you're interested in, to really give us some focus on what we want to enhance and the information that we provide to you tonight. Although we're going to give such great information, it's going to be a lot of fun. So
We're going to have fun.
yes. And, I love to see people in the chat. If you have, comments, if you have, telling us where you're from, if you're new to our DNA company, our universe here, we would love to know that. If you are new, hey, you know what? If this is your first webinar with us, put a 1 in the chat. I would love to see the people that are new to us. If you are a recurring offender for joining us to our webinars, put a 2 in the chat. I'd love to see this. Wow, look at all the new people. Thank you, everyone, for coming in, and look at the glorious repeats. Love to see you guys. This is fantastic. Oh, you guys are in for a treat tonight. Wow, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. We are happy that you are joining us. So I want to hand the floor over to Jessica for a moment to just introduce herself a little bit, and maybe give us a brief introduction about what is iridology. And then as soon as you're done that, I'm going to hop over and we're going to take a look at the poll questions, because I want to make sure that everybody's had a chance to fill that out. So Jessica, you've got the floor.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm a board certified iridologist. That's International Practitioner of Iridology Association. And I'm going to talk about iridology tonight. I'm also a certified functional genomics practitioner here with the DNA company, and I'm going to talk about iridology. So if those of you who don't know what it is, well, iridology means the study of the iris of the eye, but what we do is study, it's kind of like the study of the health of the body via the examination of the iris and the color and the structure of the iris, as well as the sclera, the pupil, and I can see it's okay. So how it works, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. This is the first time I'm doing this. So,
Doing
okay.
great.
So how it works is the eyes are connected through the brain, through the optic nerve. And the brain is connected all the way with the central nervous system. So how it works is that through the central nervous system, the organs and the tissues of the body communicate to the eyes what's going on in the rest of the body. By the brain, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I mean, honestly, it's like the information coming in through our eyeballs, it's like all it is information. It's our brains that actually have to put those pieces together and create that image and how to recognize what it is, that's coming into our eyeballs. I mean, it's like I said, the body is just absolutely amazing. It is so incredible, and being able to decipher that, because this is something that has been utilized by populations for what, hundreds of, or I should say thousands of years. Yes.
Yes, about 6,000 years.
Wow. I mean, just amazing.
Yeah.
So it's not like they had microscopes or, testing equipment, things like that. They had to use what they had. And again, windows to the soul. So
exactly.
let's take a look at the poll question. So Vanny, can you please bring that up for me, please? Excellent. All right. So our first question: have you ever noticed changes in your eyes when your health or diet shifts? And we have more than half of you saying yes. We have a little over a quarter of you that said no, and a little less saying unsure. Yeah, honestly, it almost seems kind of strange sometimes when you're looking at yourself in the mirror. It's not like we really examine too much or notice differences or changes, that a lot of times we hear it from other people. But I'm sure that you've heard comments like, "Oh, your eyes are brighter," or they sparkle, and that's part of that change, wouldn't you think, Jessica?
Oh, yes. What happens is when people, oh, do you want me?
No, go ahead.
What happens is when you get healthier, the sclera, which is the white of the eyes, those will get whiter and brighter. So they make your eyes itself look brighter. The eye itself can accumulate more color, but it doesn't usually leave the eye once it's there.
And that's fascinating. And we're definitely going to be diving into that more. So our second question was, have you ever heard of iridology before registering for this webinar? And just over half of you said, yes, you're familiar with it. Well, that is fantastic. So we have a lot of people who already have a little bit of knowledge, at least a little bit of knowledge about iridology. But for the other half of you, there was 33% of you that said you've heard the term, but you don't know much about it. Well, I hope you've been learning more about it just in this introduction. And then we have 15% that had never heard of it until today. So fantastic. I'm glad, you're little sponges and you're going to get such a treat. All right. Our third question: when you think of eye health, which system comes to mind first? Well, overwhelmingly, 64% of you said vision and optical clarity. And that is absolutely, very typical, of course. On the flip side of that, only like 10% of you said that the system that would come to mind, circulation and inflammation, or gut and microbiome. And I love how that came to your mind, because obviously, I would bet you that the people that answered that question with that have heard about iridology, have some knowledge about it. And then 17% of you said brain and nerves, because you're right, actually, all of it's connected. So, but very interesting, how much is being impacted, how much can impact your eye health. So our fourth question was, which statement do you think is true? So we had three statements, or you could choose none of the above. So 12% of you said none of the above statements that I'm going to read are true. So our first statement is, the eyes have their own microbiome. So Jessica, is that true or not true?
True.
That is true. So, and more than half of you, a little over half of you had said, yep, that statement's true. The second statement, eye color can change due to gut health. True or not true, Jessica?
Partially true. The eyes, like we said before, the white, which is this called the sclera, those can get whiter and brighter. As far as the iris itself, like I said, you can accumulate pigmentation, but once it's there, it won't go away.
So that is really interesting because 36% of you said that was a true statement. So you are partially correct. Now, our last statement, only 1% of you said that this is true. And the statement is, genes don't affect ocular tissue. Jessica, true or not true?
True, they do. Oh, they do. Yes.
They do. And do you want to give just a brief little insight?
Sure. There are some genes that are related to the collagen, and the eye, part of the eye, the sclera, is comprised of collagen. So that's how they would affect it.
So there is truth throughout each of those statements, some more than others, but really interesting, the knowledge of seeing how everything is interconnected and the systems related off of our previous question about eye health. So our last question, what's your biggest takeaway goal from this session? And we have a beautiful spattering here, but our main one with just shy 40% is discover evidence-based iridology insights. Well, you definitely came to the right place and you got the right person to give you that information. Our follow-up, the next one at 31% is understand the gut-eye link. Then that was followed up with 21% of you saying, learn personalized eye care strategies, which we always, offer up some action items on what you can do. And the final one at 10%, be inspired by new science. And I hope all of you get inspired by the science we're going to share. So thank you again very much for filling out that poll. That really helps us. All right, Jessica. So I would like you to nerd out in the most fun way about iridology, about how this works, and also doing as people ask, to be able to know that gut-eye connection and to be given some strategies on what to do. So can you give us some more information? And actually, I know that you also have an image to share that might help too. So,
oh yeah, you want to do that now or a little later?
Well, however would be the easiest for you, if you would like to speak a little bit more into iridology, and then we can bring up the image. So
sure.
Take it away, my dear.
Okay, so like I said before, I stumbled a little, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, this being my first webinar, but that being said, so the eye has a direct connection through the brain via the nervous system. So the eyes are a direct outpopping of the brain via the optic nerve. And so the brain, through the central nervous system, sends signals to the body, and vice versa. Through the central nervous system sends signals to the brain, which then shows up in the eye. Because the eye has, like I said, reflex connection to every part of the body. Kind of like when you go for foot reflexology and they touch certain parts, it's similar. But when we look in the eyes, it's like seeing a whole universe. Your eyes tell your story. It goes back like 3 to 5 generations. So it's a whole symphony of frequencies from past generations showing in your eye, telling your unique story. And there are no two eyes alike, not even in your own head. Each eye is completely different. So that being said, it's more of a biometrics than your fingerprint, the government. So your eyes don't change. So for those people who did learn years ago that your eyes change or that there'll be healing lines, no, I'm sorry to disappoint, but if that were true, we would not be able to use the eye as an identification marker. So yeah, what else can I tell you? So yeah.
Well, no, I actually, it's, when you're talking about eye changes, so you were saying that when there is a problem, okay, if you have an issue that can happen because of genetics that become expressed due to epigenetic effects, it shows up in your eyes, in the iris, in the colored part of the eyes, correct?
Yes, correct. That can happen.
Okay. But when you shift out of the diseased state, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if this is not correct. So when you shift out of the diseased state, the either pigmentation or change in the iris doesn't go away. It's almost like a scar in a way. Not, and I don't
A tattoo.
a tattoo. There you go. So even when you are in more of a healthy state or you've shifted out of that disease state, there's always that information that remains, correct?
Correct. It's kind of a reminder.
Which is really interesting because you were saying about past generations. So past generations, issues from them carries on to yourself, and then you kind of add to that tattoo of the eye itself, which then gets passed on to your future generations. Is that correct?
And you can change that though. The future generation doesn't have to have that if you take care of that in the present. So if you take care, it's kind of there as like a gift almost from your past generations, telling you this is what there is, and now it's up to you to heal that so you don't pass it on. And it comes with emotions as well, because behind about 90% of physical issues starts with an emotion. So
Right.
yeah, so you need to really pay attention to that. I mean, the eyes, even the ears, all our senses take in information from the outside, as well as information being sent through that nervous system through to the brain, through the afferent nerves. So is the same way we can take in information from our eyes that relates to the rest of our body. That's why if you watch like a horror movie or something before you go to bed, some people will get all discombobulated and can't sleep and heart racing.
So just for myself, because I find this really cool. So you get the tattoo from that diseased state or issue that you have yourself, but you don't necessarily have to pass it on to your future generations, to your grandchild, if you fixed it. So it stays on you, but it doesn't necessarily have to be passed on to future generations.
Exactly. Well, babies are not born with that. I'm going to call them jewels because jewels sound way prettier than pigmentation.
Definitely.
We're going to call them jewels. So babies are not born with those. They usually, if they're going to come, they'll start to come maybe around 6 years of age, but they can come as we get older as well. So whereas there are about 70% of people over the age of 50 will have some sort of pigmentation that they've acquired in their eyes. And some of it, yes, it's passed down, but that doesn't mean you have to express it. So not everybody is going to get it. There is one marking where maybe in a future webinar we'll talk about that has to do with lipids. that show up in the eye, and we call that a lipemic diathesis. But that once it's there, it's a tattoo, and it is generational, but no, not everybody gets it. Even those who, and if you see it under the age of somebody who is 50, you want to get to the doctor right away.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I look at the eyes of my beautiful little grandbabies, and of course they're just so blue, and they are so pretty, and it's just like, oh wow, I wonder how they're going to change, or it's just amazing. But we'll get into that. All right, so I'll bet you that our audience would like to see a picture. Hey guys, if you want to see the image that Jessica has available for you, put one in the chat. I want to see if they're ready for it.
There's a lot going on in that photo.
Beautiful. Oh yeah, they're ready. All right, love to see it. All right. Oh, by the way, Kat had a question, and it was she's asking pigmentation in the iris, sclera, or both. When
you can get both. Like so some pigmentation in the sclera, it depends. If it's a brown eye, which we call a hematogenic eye, if it's close to the iris, then that's normal. So as you know, people get older, they can develop this. But if it's in a blue eye, then you don't want it there.
Yeah. And by the way, anyone, if you guys have questions, please make sure to put them in the Q&A, because we will be going over those toward the end like we always do. So because sometimes they get lost in the chat, and I want to make sure that we answer your questions. All right. So Danny, can you bring up that beautiful eyeball image?
Thanks, Danny.
I'm gonna let Jessica take it away.
Oh, okay. So now this is an eyeball. It's a left eye of a male age 64. And I'm showing you this particular eye. Usually when I do an analysis, I have both eyes in front of me, a right and a left, because about 80% of what I see in the left eye usually comes from your mom's side and 80% from your dad's side. But there's, because of the optic chiasm where there's a crossover, so there's that little 20%. But like I said, we're going to see this one left eye tonight because there's a lot going on in there, and this person has pretty much expressed his genes, the majority of them anyway. So let's get started. Okay, so if we look right in the center, you'll see the pupil. So when I'm, being that we're talking about the gut microbiome tonight, I'm going to focus a lot on that. So when I'm assessing the gut from looking at the iris, I look at the center there. Now, if you see around the pupil, there's like a kind of like a donut. Let's call it a donut or watch band. Can everybody see that? Yes, Dr. Laura.
Yes, I can see it, and I asked if people could see the image, and I'm getting yeses. So
okay, so that the center from the pupil to the white, where you can see a circle kind of around it. That's okay. So that's what we call the nutritive zone. Okay, so in where that circle is, the whiter circle where you can see through, that represents the stomach and the zone of digestion. And just outside that area, still inside of what we call the collarette, which is the major landmark in the iris, it's actually arteries and interwoven with nerves from the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so it serves a few functions, and it tells me about your bowel function as well as some personality and behavior traits, as well as some other things. Anyway, so back to that circle there with zone of digestion, and then the absorption around it, which is the large intestine and the small intestine. Okay, so that's where I look when I'm assessing gut health. Now, if being that you can see, I purposely chose this eye because you can see that watch band or sunflower, like we'll call it. Okay. Now, the fact that we can see that means there's less density in that area. So when I see less density, I'll know already that that's an area of nurture, because it means less resiliency. So when I say by resiliency, I mean the ability to function at optimal. So
just if I can interrupt you for just a
yeah.
moment. So people are asking if you could also comment on the color arrows for
Oh, I'm going to get there. Yes.
No, I realize that, but just, you know, for the areas, just for clarity, to again, just as a reference point, or if it's near, you know, a particular
Yes.
color that people can zone in and focus on.
Okay, sorry. The black arrow is pointing, do you see where the black arrow on top? That's pointing to the collarette.
Perfect.
Oh, the area all around the pupil. Okay.
Yes.
Now
And
the
yes,
purple arrow.
I just wanted to say to Janet that the different colored arrows do mean things. Yeah, it can be hard to figure out the area that she's referring to, but that's exactly why. No, because there's a lot going on. And you know, she's just you know, trying to orient, but for each colored area or arrow that is pointing at something, that has specific significance, which she is going to be going through each of them and explaining that. So
yes, I just wanted to give a little bit of what I'm going to be talking about, and when I look at gut health, where I'm looking first. Okay, but each arrow, yes, is going to be telling a story. Okay, so the black arrow is pointing to the collarette. So like I said, that's the major landmark in the iris where we look. It's interwoven with sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. So it does tell us how somebody, their bowel function, their intestinal health. It also is a barrier between the gut and the rest of the body, the rest of the tissues and organs in the body. So kind of, I guess, like you would call it the epithelial lining, maybe. But yeah, anyway, okay, so now going back to that white circle there in the mid, not the collarette. If you look at the purple arrow, that's pretty much pointing to that watch band look. Okay, now, like I said before, that tells me about the digestion. Now, the fact that I can see that is telling me that this person digestion is not optimal. Okay, and yes, this person has gas and bloating and ulcers. Now I'm going to show you how we can see that. Now, the fact that you can see through like that and see it tells me about the resiliency. Now, the fact that there are some jewels inside there, if you can see the jewels on inside that area, do you see? Does everybody see?
And yeah, if you see what she calls the jewels, meaning those pigments, or she's also commented on saying like tattoos, but she's calling them jewels. She was just wondering if you can see them. And I do see a no coming in. So can you just
yes. Okay, so if you look, the colored in, okay, around, let's say maybe 5 o'clock area inside near the pupil coming out, there's quite a bit of coloration in there. Okay, so we call that a fermentative stomach. Now that relates to the AMY1 gene usually, and this person happens to have a suboptimal AMY1 gene relating to amylase.
And you can find the AMY1 gene in your diet and nutrition reports. And you can also go to our app, The DNA Way, and then bring up your information from there if you've already done your DNA 360 reports. Continue,
okay.
Please.
Yes. So back to that. So amylase and carbohydrate digestion. So when this person eats carbohydrates, breads, pastas, things like that, he tends to be very bloated and gassy and put on weight. So that, okay. So, and then let's look at that blue arrow. Does everybody see the blue arrow, that gray border over there? It's like a thick gray border.
So put a 1 in the chat if you can see that border that she's talking about with you said the blue arrow, correct?
The blue arrow, yes.
Yes. Okay, we're getting a bunch of 1s, so people are seeing it.
Okay, cool. All right, well, that gray border has to do with the parietal cells. Now, the parietal cells are specialized cells in the stomach that they secrete intrinsic factor and HCl, hydrochloric acid. Now, intrinsic factor makes B12 absorb, well, there's cells that help proteins, actually, I'm sorry, glycoproteins that help us absorb vitamin B12. Now, when I see that like that, it tells me that there's most likely reduced parietal cell function. So there will be reduced intrinsic factor along with reduced hydrochloric acid. Now, when this person happens to have the FUT2 gene, a heterozygous, that means suboptimal. So AG instead of GG. Now, if we have 1G, we know that's okay anyway, but nevertheless, the G version lets us know that we have a lower ability to absorb B12. And this is proving that right there, that he has that. And he also has tested low with B12. And he also has a suboptimal methylation pathway, which we're going to talk about now, and some other things related. So the yellow arrow right there is pointing to a beautiful jewel right next to a little flower petal. Now that flower petal means reduced function, but overall his density is pretty good. So he is pretty resilient, and we're going to see just how resilient he is. So that where that yellow arrow is and that beautiful jewel sitting right there tells us a few things. It tells us about liver function. It also lets me know about his MTHFR. So usually when I see something like that, the person has a suboptimal MTHFR variation. He happens to have which one? 1 second, I'll tell you right now. MTHFR TT. He has a TT, which is 70% reduction. But he has an entire methylation panel that is suboptimal. So that being said, he has expressed these. If you look at that red arrow, you'll see a line there going from almost by the green, just under the green arrow, all the way down. Does everybody see that?
Put a 1 in the chat if you can see that a little squiggly line that starts coming down through with the red arrow. Yes, we're getting a lot of 1s and yeses. Yep.
Okay, so that is what we call a heart-spleen transversal. It's not a very common sign. This person happened to have had 2 heart attacks in his 50s. Okay, anytime I see a heart-spleen transversal, I know that in the family there's been heart attack. Like I said, it's not very common. And that being said, before we continue, I just want to let you know that even though we have these signs in the eyes, does not mean we're going to express them. The same like with our genetics. Whether we express the best case scenario or the worst case scenario really depends on what we eat, what we drink, how we live, how we love, and what we think. So all of that comes into play. So by no means is it a death sentence when you see these things in your eye. Just think of it as a gift that's been passed down to you from your future generations. Maybe your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, given to you as a warning or something to heal. Every sign in the eye is a gift. You should all remember that because it's there for us to learn from. Okay, now, so if we go up to where the green arrow is, there are a couple things over there. If you see right outside the green arrow, all those dark color, it's much darker, less dense than the rest. Can everybody see that? Around,
Yeah, you can see
yes.
it, or you can just say, hey, put a 1 in the chat, or a Y or a yes, and I will keep track.
Okay. Well, that area right there is his heart. So he was genetically predisposed for this already, and he does have 9p215G. So he had, but because he's so resilient, he did have 2 heart attacks, but he's doing really well now. He's in, like I said, 64. This was in his 50s, and they were pretty big heart attacks that most people would not survive. But because he is so strong, he did, thank God. But that's there. It's never going to close up and go away. It's always going to be there. That does not mean it's going to happen again. But he does need to pay attention and take care. And luckily, we have not only the eyes, but we have the genes to prove things and to follow. So we know exactly what to do. And because of that suboptimal methylation, and he also has a suboptimal SOD, he actually has the lowest variation from the SOD as well. It's the TT. So we know what we need to do. And according to his panels, we need to give him B12 sublingually, and he can do the methylcobalamin, excuse me, but because his SHMT1 gene is suboptimal, we do need to give him folinic acid. I did get him on a protocol, and I'm happy to say the last time he went to the doctor, he was perfect. He no longer has any kind of issues whatsoever. Okay, now there's the pink arrow. We didn't discuss that one. Let's talk about that one. It's pointing to a cloud puff, kind of. Those are called tophi. They're all around the eye, but I put just that one. But if you look, you'll see them around pretty much the whole iris, except for from around where the heart stuff is to that pink arrow, pretty much. But they're discolored. When they're discolored, it tells me that the lymphatic system is congested, which means that detoxification for him is probably a little more difficult. And when I look to see his GST genes, yes, he's got a GSTP1 heterozygous, and he does have GSTM1 2 copies. Now, normally we think that is perfect, but we know now that GSTM1 2 copies is a little bit too much. So that is more predisposition for autoimmune, which he has expressed as well as Hashimoto's. Now, because Hashimoto's is autoimmune, we also look at that from the gut. So when I see that suboptimal gut and I see the poor detoxification and poor methylation and SOD, then I'm going to do the gut 360 for him. And when we got back the results, yes, there's dysbiosis as thought, and the Firmicutes to bacteroidetes ratio, excuse me, was too high. So when I see that, I already know that there's autoimmune, and he has Hashimoto's. And specifically, actually, just to know, high Firmicutes to bacteroidetes is very showing of Hashimoto's. Some others as well, but Hashimoto's is really up there.
And I just want to mention to people that, so some of the genes that she's been throwing out. So she was talking about the GST genes. These are part of the glutathione conjugation pathway. It's a phase 2 detoxification pathway that happens in the liver. Very, very important. And you will find the information. If you've done your DNA 360 reports, you will find it in the anti-inflammatory profile. You will also see these genes listed in like cardiovascular when you look at the summary and in other reports, because they affect so many different systems. But if you just want to see, hey, you know, I want to have very specific information on my GST genes on that pathway, you'll find it in anti-inflammatory profile. And then she was talking about the SOD, GPX. Okay, that's the antioxidation pathway, which again, you will find in the same reports, and as well as the MTHFR, which is related to methylation pathway. And then there was another one that you mentioned, some of the gut ones. FUT2, you will find those in your diet nutrition report. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were oriented on the genes she was talking about and where you can find them.
Thank you. Okay, there are a couple more things going on here that I will tell you. So back to the reduced parietal cell and the hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factors. So those people are also usually more predisposed for H. pylori and ulcers. Okay, that doesn't mean you're going to get it, but there is more of a predisposition in those who have the FUTG allele specifically. And he has a G, he has an AG, so there's some other things going on there as well, but we're going to talk about this one because he does have ulcers. Now, remember what I said about the left eye being more from the mom side. Now, that little green arrow is also pointing to a little black jewel, if everybody can see that, the tiny little black jewel.
Put a 1 in the chat if you can see where she's talking about. Excellent. We're getting 1, so they're seeing it. Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So this person has a family history of stomach cancer. Okay. Now, upon questioning, I asked by any chance if this person had a relative with cancer in the family on the mom's side. Yes, this cancer was in his grandfather and his mom's dad. So, like I said, though, this is passed down. It does not mean he has it, but because I do see it, I refer him to go get an endoscopy and to keep check on that because his habits are not the best. And when we don't do what we need to do, even though I did put him on a certain protocol, we still need to get regular checkups to make sure that things are okay.
All right. So was there any other notice things that you've noticed that played into the way you helped him for recommendations, or that you wanted to make mention before we shift over to some of the questions? Because there's a lot of questions and I think these are fantastic. So I want to make sure we get to all of them.
Okay. Yes, because he has so many gut issues. You know, he had the ulcers and he has gas and bloating and all weight gain and all that, but he had terrible heartburn as well. Now, because of that, I'm not a fan of the PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, just because most cases are too little acid. Even if you have ulcers, most of the cases are still too low hydrochloric acid. So it's very rare to have hyperhydrochlorhydria, which is too much acid. It does happen, but it's not very common. So I put him on Megagard, but for him, which has helped a lot, I put him on Mega IgG 2000 to help clear some things out, and HU58. And so far, so good.
So, well, that is amazing. So, I mean, and I do want to let people know, I want to remind you that the recommendations, the supplements, what she's talking about for this client is very specific to him.
Yes.
So, we don't want you going out and, in a mirror and, like taking a look and go, oh gosh, I got to do this. And it's like, we do highly recommend that you work with someone who knows what they're doing, who has a background, who can more correctly read this, and who, even better, knows how to interpret functional genomics to be able to tie in the two to personalize recommendations even more. And Jessica, one of our newest in-house clinicians here at the DNA company, is available. Like, if you want to get a session with her, if you want to get into a program to help with your health, to optimize your health, or shift you out of a diseased state, you have the ability to have a session or a program with her, and she can do these things for you. So absolutely, if you're interested, please reach out to us. We've got a link in the chat on finding out more about different programs and how to work with Jessica. So
Thank you.
oh, absolutely. So like I said, we have a bunch of incredible questions in our Q&A. And I want to make sure to get to them because, again, I did a scan and they are fabulous questions. So
Okay.
Unless there's anything else you wanted to add, I'd like to shift over to the Q&A. Does that sound good?
Let's take the Q&A because there's a whole universe in this eye that we can talk about, but we're trying to keep it. I'm trying.
Absolutely. So real quick, do you have use of this image anymore? Or are we all set?
Oh, yeah, fine.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
So
unless somebody is asking specific question or
okay, well, why don't we do this? Vanny, why don't you just remove it from the share? And if someone has a specific question on the eye, then we'll just bring it back up. Fair enough? Perfect.
Perfect.
All right. So what I'll do is I'm going to start reading some of the questions, and we can kind of bounce back and forth with some of the answers.
Perfect.
So our first question is from Renee, and Renee is asking, are cataracts due to gut health?
I don't know how to answer that really. I don't think so much. I think it's more related to exposure to the sun and age, just aging and how you take care of yourself overall. I mean, everything has to do with how we take care of our bodies.
Well, I have a little bit more information to kind of dovetail off of that. But actually, I mean, you're correct. I mean, cataracts, no, it's not directly caused by poor gut health, but it does have a factor of imbalanced gut microbiome, gut barrier dysfunction that can all contribute to biological processes like systemic inflammation, oxidative stress, and that increases cataract risk. It can accelerate its development. So again, we are talking about systems biology. We are talking about everything being connected. So even though it is not a direct cause, there certainly is it can perturb the system and make things progress faster or get a little worse. So always good to make sure your gut health is up to par because
Oh, yeah.
we do say your immune system, your gut really impacts your immune system quite a bit. So we want to make sure everything's working well. Thank you for that question. All right, so our next question is from Cindy, and she's saying, let's see, after mold exposure, the whites of her eyes turned blood red everywhere. No pain until migraine later. Her iris did not change. What was it? Now, I will say that I want to be very careful on any information or answers because without a history or knowing more specificity about your case, it is outside of scope of practice, and it's not quite right to say, oh, that's what it is, because we don't have enough information, and Jessica's not your doctor. So, but I will ask Jessica, do you have any ideas on what can influence some of what she's talking about?
Well, the sclera is very dynamic, where the iris doesn't really change. I mean, like I said, you can accumulate some color. The sclera does change and it will react. So if somebody has, God forbid, cancer or something, there will be a change in the sclera as well. So if you have allergies, it will show in the sclera as well. I can see if you have let's say there's a sign, we'll call it a migraine net. and you, depending on where it is, will let me know whether those migraines are coming from more external environment or internal. So yeah, the sclera is pretty telling.
Wonderful.
And it
All right.
does show more predisposition, I should say, for candida. If there are certain signs in there, will let me know if there's some issues could be related there.
All right. So thank you for that question. All right. So our next question is from Judy, and she's saying, I heard from another iridologist on Facebook that the red squiggly lines in the white of our eyes represent parasites. Do you happen to agree with them? Okay.
No.
Also, how do we whiten the whites of our eyes? There you go.
Oh,
go ahead.
Okay, so that you really need, you would need to know your personal, story and why it is like that to begin with, because that's usually inflammation. So you have to see where in your body is this inflammation coming from. When your body gets healthier, the whites of your eyes will get whiter. Depending if those red lines are really heavy and thick, they may not go away completely, depending on how long they've been there. So they will get lighter, but they may not completely go away. That doesn't mean you're not well. It just means that they're that heavy that once they're imprinted, it's not that easy for completely going away.
Yeah. And I do want to remind everyone that, when it comes to reading the eye, okay, it's not something that you do in an hour or an overnight class or something. There is an accredited course, there's training, there's experience. Jessica, please,
And you really need to be careful who you go to, because there are a lot of people who take a 3-day course or a week course and think they know everything, and they're out there diagnosing by every sign that's in the iris. Now, like I said before, most of these signs are genetic, and so they're there. It's your structure. You came into the world that way. They were developed while you were still a fetus. So they're not really changing. That's why they can use it as identification, your eyes. Okay, so there are no healing lines. I'm sorry to tell you, it's like if, let's say you had a purse and you open the purse, then it's going to be crinkly. But when you pull it together, it's going to be more strong. So let's put it, okay, so when you get healthier, the pupils will get smaller. As those pupils are smaller, the fibers look straighter and denser. When you're more in fight or flight or not well, which usually when we're not well, our pupils are a little larger because our adrenals are a little stressed maybe, and the cortisol, and we're in constant fight or flight. So those fibers are going to look more crinkled, and there'll be more, those flower petals will look bigger. Okay, so, and as you heal and the pupil gets smaller, they'll look straighter. So your eye may look different, and you may think, oh my gosh, my eye completely changed. Yes and no. Your eye changed because the pupil got smaller, but it's still the same structure.
Gotcha. Well, I definitely appreciate that clarification. So our next question is from Renee, and she's asking, what's the cause for dry eye? And I'll grab this question because dry eye occurs when the eye doesn't make enough quality tears, or when the tears evaporate too quickly, and that really, it leaves the surface of the eye dry, irritated, unprotected, because you need that lubrication. And when you're talking about causes, well, I mean, they say aging, but that in itself is like, an umbrella bucket. But hormonal changes, autoimmune issues like Sjogren's, medications can cause it, vitamin A deficiency, and also, just environmental factors. If you live in a very windy area, dry area, or, if you have a lot of screen time, we don't tend to blink our eyes as much. when we are staring at the blue light screens, in our faces. Allergies can cause it, so there's a lot of different things. Is there anything that I may be missing, when it comes to dry eye? But of course, even then, that's more of a ophthalmologist to optometrist. By the way, I was an optometric assistant ages and ages ago. Yes, I used to work for an ophthalmologist and optometrist. So anyway, so I do have a background in that. But so really that's not directed so much for being able to read the iris of an eye or what Jessica was going through, but I wanted to make sure to differentiate that. All right, so Cheryl has another question. She said, and I know you touched on this because I saw this question come up before you had dove into it a bit more, but if very briefly, if you could answer, where does the microbiome show up on the iris?
The eye microbiome or the gut microbiome?
She just has the microbiome. So I would think, I'm going to guess that it would be gut microbiome.
Well, then it would be the area in between from the pupil edge until the collarette. That would show the whole area.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, so Sheila is asking, my brother was born with bright blue eyes, and when he turned 1, his eyes changed to green. What explains that?
Yeah, that's normal. Okay, so that is genetic, and the green is actually yellow pigmentation over the blue that makes it look green. It's called urocine. So uro for urine and rosine for the yellow kidney function. Okay, so it does have to do with probably in the family, there may be some kidney issues. They're more predisposition for kidney related issues.
Fantastic. All right, so the next question is from Susan, and actually I'll grab this one. And she's asking, what collagen genes are associated with eye health? Now, I will tell you that in our DNA 360 reports, we do not report on collagen genes, but this is an area that I did in my PhD. I actually specifically worked on collagen genes, but just for that information's sake, the key collagen genes in eye health are like collagen 4, very important for basement membranes of the ocular tissue. Collagen 8 is another one that's a major component of the cornea membrane. And I know that collagen 2 is another one. That's for vitreous retina. And I believe, yeah, there's one more, but it's not a COL gene, like a collagen gene. It's LEPREL, leprel with a 1. And that's involved in collagen modification in the development of like the lens capsule and any mutations that can cause things like myopathy or even early onset cataract. So anyway, just kind of nerd out a little bit on the genes that are part of that. So thanks for the question, Susan. All right, so Kathleen has our next question. She says, my brother had medium brown eyes like mine and our sisters growing up. Somewhere in adult life, his eyes turned light green. Any idea what might have caused this? Our father had blue eyes, mother had green eyes. We had one grandparent with brown eyes and the other 3 were blue-eyed.
Well, he probably did not have actual light brown eyes. They probably had what we call a mixed eye, and those sometimes can look brown, and people sometimes think they have brown eyes, and many times they have come to me and I've taken their photos and said, okay, who in the family has blue or green eyes? And they were shocked to find out that they did not have brown eyes, that they actually had a mixed eye. So we call those spotted puppies.
Like cute.
Yeah, so it could just be that the way the lighting was showing, or the photo, or the way, maybe he got healthier, or the whites of the eyes got whiter, so it showed that way. But most likely They were already that color.
Yeah. Well, the next question works into this. Excuse me, works into color of the eyes, because Kat is asking, are folks with very dark colored eyes out of luck? I mean, you consider there are some populations out of luck, meaning not being able for you to be able to see the detail and pigmentation, you know, because obviously there are populations that have very, very, very dark brown eyes. I mean, if you just look at them, you can't see the detail of the iris like you did in your image. So can you
right. Okay, that's because the melanin pigment covers the fibers, but everybody's got blue eyes underneath, really. It's just melanin that's covering it. But you can, if you light them a certain way, you can see the detail. I've had many, many people with brown eyes. We call them hematogenic eyes. There's a reason for that, but that's for another time.
Yeah. So, Kat, basically, you're not out of luck. They can be red, and you know that's why you need to have a really good camera and have them take. And
for lighting, you hold a pen light. Yeah.
Right. All right. So Laura has a question. Hi, can an iridologist assess if any traumatic brain trauma has happened recent and or years and years ago? If so, what can be said about what can be read?
I recently, well, if the iris is damaged, is she talking about if the iris has been damaged? Because if the iris is damaged, I can't read it, like a physically damaged eye. I can read it if it that, but if she's talking about brain injuries, yes. I actually had a client last week that didn't tell me any of that. And I saw something in his eye, in the sclera actually, and then something pointing. Anyway, I saw some signs and I did say something to him, and he came right on and he said, oh yeah, I had a terrible brain injury. I was in a coma. I'm like, oh, because I was referring him to go get another, you know, scan of the brain to see. And he didn't want to see a doctor, but you know, sometimes we do need to check, especially if these things have happened. But yes, I can see.
Wonderful. Our next question is from CA. Okay, so if that tattoos, if the tattoos remain forever, even after the disease state has passed, how can you know which tattoos are active indicators versus those that are only a reminder of what the body went through at one point?
Good question. So usually I know that it's been activated by something what we call perifocal signs, perifocal pigments. Okay, so that's seeing that with another sign as well. But that being said, I usually ask the question because I'm not a psychic. I can predict your future. I can see what you could be where you could be heading, but I cannot say for sure you're going to have this. And I would never. I don't do those things. I will not diagnose, but I will make recommendations or suggestions.
Wonderful.
I hope that answered her question.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, so our next question is from Alexandra. Hi, Alex. I have always had a strong black outer rim line outside of the iris. What do you make of this?
Oh, a lot of people have that. That's what usually makes eyes so blue. Beautiful. Are her eyes blue? Do we know?
Yes.
Okay, so that represents the skin. So usually when I see people with that, they're more predisposed to skin issues, whether it's dry skin, oily skin, anything to do with the skin. And as well, so the Europeans, we call the skin the third kidney. So if the kidney is not doing its job properly, then the skin may take over to help out. So that's why, you know, sometimes there'll be an elder person who has a certain smell to them and you think, oh, they didn't shower or whatever, but no, it's because that's coming from the kidneys, and that smell, unfortunately, they can't get rid of it. But that's in older people.
Right. Thank you for that.
Well,
okay, our next question is from Paul, and he's asking, Okay, so he's in reference to the image of the client that you had the eyeball for.
Yes.
And he's asking, was he born with that heart attack line from the green to the red arrow, or did the heart attacks cause the line after the fact?
No, he was born with that. That
Interesting.
was there. Yeah, that is born with that. So sometimes that's why there'll be those iridologists who if they know that line, because not everybody does, but if they see that, they'll say that, oh, something's wrong with the child. But no.
Gotcha. Good to know. All right, Carolyn is asking our next question. And okay, so it's a little bit longer. So, can gut issues cause a folded macula? I just found out I have the GSTM1 gene, 0 copies, and have been experiencing gut issues about the same time as the fold occurred. Hold on, let me just scan through. On a low plant toxin diet to save her gut. If she gets her gut corrected, will her eye health improve? Is there a correlation? She also has suboptimal toxin removals pathways plus suboptimal cellular response to inflammation. So again, without knowing a lot of the details, you know, just can't answer specific medical questions. But if we take this at a general sense, if you can give some information, if you know, if gut issues can correlate or be related to folded macula.
I guess it would depend if there's autoimmune involved. If if it is autoimmune, then yeah, I would imagine that the gut would be involved, especially with GSTM1, 2 copies. So I would definitely work on the gut either way, because if there is some kind of inflammation, certainly, working on and healing that microbiome would help. But I never go for the kill protocol, just because it's not the way I work. I think it's better first you try to repopulate and get as many good bacteria in first, and then see if you can work it that way.
Right. And just a reminder, everyone, that we can't give medical advice. I may be a doctor, but we are not your doctors. We are not your practitioners. And that's the details of which really need to be worked with a practitioner who has all of your information, history, hopefully they know about DNA and some of this other stuff as well. But this is also why we work as a team here at the DNA company, because we do look at all of that and, putting our brains together, our experience together, the ability to work, where Jessica can look at your eye, relate that to DNA, and having other practitioners, in-house that, can help you in other ways. Again, it is a team, and, this is something that we can do for you. So please, if you are interested in working with any of us, with all of us, reach out. Absolutely. You got a lot of brilliant brains and a lot of experience in-house. So, all right. Thank you for that question, Carolyn. All right. Our next question, Nalita, and I hope I pronounced that right. She's asking what she will recommend to help. Oh, okay. So basically with detoxification for the client that you showed the eyeball, this gentleman,
Right.
can just very briefly, can you overview the detoxification protocol, or not necessarily protocol, but what you focused on for detoxification for him?
Right. Well, I focus with him more. He, with everything he's got going on, you have to be a little careful with detoxification, because some people, it really depends on the client and their eyes. Some people will have a more harsh reaction. So you need to go according to your own strength and what's going on with your genes. But for him, I focus more on the gut and his methylation, because I always go with diet and methylation. Once we get the methylation and the gut taken care of, the rest kind of falls into place, I find. Depending, but that's always where I start.
Perfect. All right. So we have a question from Dr. Rajpal Singh, and he's saying, Jess, you said the left eye is
That was the left eye.
Yeah. You said the left eye is more from the mother's side. Does that mean that the right eye is more from the father's side?
Yes. Yes, and there's way more to it. There's emotional things and personalities and all kind of traits that are involved in there.
Yeah. Hence why you have to take a very extensive course certification and lots of experience.
Oh, I learned for years.
Yeah, I mean, distilling it down to one webinar does not give it anywhere near the justice.
Yeah,
And
no.
I don't think truly shows the depth of knowledge and, the nuances that that you had to learn from, that you have navigated over the last umpteen dozen years, or how long have you been doing this?
Over 20 years.
Holy crap. Okay, so there you go. So you got a lot of experience. So, all right.
And each eye is unique, and you learn as you it's not even so much or everything you learn in the courses. You learn from experience as well, and from seeing certain things over and over.
Right. All right. So our next question is from Mickey. And okay, so if someone with FUT2GG or AG do certain types of vegetables causing bloating and should be avoided. Hold on. Let me just read through this. It's okay. Okay, so really they're talking about a comment that you had made about the FUT2 gene, okay, whether they're a secretor, non-secretor, how that worked, where vegetables that can cause bloating.
Oh, that was the AMY1.
Okay.
The AMY1 gene, right,
okay.
because of the amylase. But the FUT2, no, I think I know what she's talking about, because there are there's some things going around where if you have the FUT2G version, that you can't have green vegetables and things like that. I think is that what she's
well, I mean, because there was a question of that, which again, I think it was a little mix up from some of the genes you were talking about, but also with the stomach acid, because you had mentioned about stomach acid, eating, say, a protein that's or a diet that's protein heavy, needing increased HCl, the hydrochloric acid. So,
right. So I would recommend taking bitters usually. I mean, usually, unless you have an active ulcer or issue with your gallbladder. If you're missing the gallbladder, then I wouldn't do the bitter.
Yeah, I mean, and these are some general things that, someone has their gallbladder out, that is the storage for bile to help break down fats. And unfortunately, there's a lot of surgeons that don't tell their, patients afterwards, you may want to consider, having some sort of digestive enzymes to help process that. I mean, actually, both my mother and my son had their gallbladders out. Doctors didn't tell them. I mean, I was the one that told them and made sure, that they were taking that so they could, digest that food a bit easier. But anyway, I digress. All right. Our next question is from Kathleen. And she's saying, sun is supposed to be great for the eye for absorption. Is that not true?
Well, yes, and no, you don't want to look directly at the bright sun, because you want to be careful not to hurt your eyes as well. But if you go out early in the morning, maybe, I don't know that I would look directly at the sun, just because you just don't know, with the layer of the ozone being degraded. I would be careful. I don't wear sunglasses in the sun because you do want that light on your eyes so that you can make melatonin later. You definitely don't want to block the light from coming into your eyes. But that being said, I would not look directly at a bright sun.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Okay, so our next question is from Anne, and she's saying, I'm Celtic. What is the significance of freckles on the eye?
Oh,
And then she gave a little bit of, background, well, like diagnoses, some issues that she's having because she's currently in her early 70s, has Sjogren's, dry eye, photosensitivity. So, but
but we're talking about the freckles.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so the freckles are those nice jewels we're talking about. But most likely, when I see someone who has a lot of those freckles, they usually have a sweet tooth naturally. Like whether she's eating sweets, that's irrelevant, but she most likely has a sweet tooth. And I'd have to see the rest of the eye to let you know for sure. But usually when I see someone with a lot of freckles, they're more analytical type and they like to know things. They'll be looking things up the minute you say it.
Interesting. I gotta have my eyes done.
Yeah, when you're coming.
All right. Our next question is from ST. And ST is asking, what would cause someone's eyes to change color? And then makes a comment, my sister had brown eyes her whole life, 57 years, and they turned green during cancer treatment. So you want to
Okay.
give some insight into that.
That could be something in the treatment. There are medications that can change the eyes. It's not very common, but yeah, even glaucoma medications, and they will even be written on the bottle. There are two specific one. One is latanoprost, and the other one it skips my mind right now the name, but yeah, they can make blue eyes brown, and one can make a brown eye blue. So yeah, that medications can occasionally do that. Yeah. I actually know somebody who had their eyes lasered to change color because she had a mixed eye and she wanted blue. But the color comes back. She had it done twice, but the color comes back because the body inherently knows that's what you are supposed to have.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah, it also changes personality too, which is pretty fascinating. Yeah, like when somebody gets a transplant and they tell you that, oh my, their whole personality change, the eyes, the colors have different meanings too with that.
Oh,
This person's personality changed when she had her eyes lasered. It's really cool.
That's wild. Boy, I'm learning something new every day. So cool. Yeah. All right. So we have another question from Sharda. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And okay, so they're asking, do you map the meaning of the red squiggles? How significant is that information?
The red squiggle. It depends on the red squiggle. So there is sclerology, and I do some of that. I don't specialize in just sclerology. I read the iris. I do the sclera as well because the sclera gives me more information, and there are certain shapes and significant issues with certain markings in the sclera as well. But it depends on the squiggle because the squiggles, where we call meander vessels, are usually the most common. So they're pretty common, depending on the thickness, and some of them can mean varicose veins or hemorrhoids, and
Amazing. Amazing how much information you can get out of just an eyeball.
Oh yeah, I've sent people to doctors for checking on things, and yeah.
Well, hey. All right, so we've got our last question. Anita is asking, what about sunlight to the eye if you wear contacts and also once you eventually have cataract surgery? Any
I would
thoughts?
still not put my eyes in the sun. And when you wear okay, so I'm not a fan of those contact lenses because our eyes breathe as well. And when you put on the cataracts, I'm sorry, not the cataracts, the contact lenses, it kind of stops that from happening. And we need light as well. And I don't like the barrier that the contact lens is putting on the eye. That's my personal opinion,
This is wearing glasses, and that way you still get
yeah.
the breathability, but yeah, they can kind of be a pain as well. So what can you do?
You can harm your eyes with them too. I know people who have slept in them by accident and then had major issues. So,
Right.
yeah, and the contact lenses need to come out before having the eyes read.
Ah, good
Yes,
to know.
yes, you don't want to go with your contact lenses in. And if you're sending photos, you want to take those contact lenses out. Cataract surgery will not affect, no. It will not affect an eye reading, neither. And glaucoma, I usually will know when somebody's had surgery because there'll be a dark marking. Some people would think if they don't know how to read the eyes and they don't know what is up, they may take that mark where they use like a laser to relieve pressure in the eye, so it will look
Yes.
like a dark black spot. And there are some iridologists or supposed iridologists who will say, oh my God, there's something wrong. You have a delirious marking in there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. And this is why asking questions are good too, because again, you're not mind readers. You just read an eye.
There are certain signs in the eye, though, that can show whether or not person is susceptible to glaucoma.
I actually have a question of my own. And I know you had mentioned that if there is physical trauma to the eyeball, you can't really read it. Are there any other situations, events, anything that would cause you to be unable to do an iridology reading?
Physical trauma, pretty much that's it. It depends if somebody's blind. It depends on what the eye is looking like as to whether or not it can be read.
Right. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, Jessica, this has been really fascinating. Like I said, I've
Thank
learned
you for
quite
having me.
a bit. I'm really excited to get my eyes read.
I'm
So,
excited to do that.
yeah, and I'll tell you once again, if anyone is interested in the work that Jessica is doing and to be able to get that association with their genes, and with their overall health, please reach out to us. We can drop that in the chat again. Thank you, Vanny. Reach out and, we can see about different programs that might work for you. And as always, you can have and ask for Jessica to be your practitioner or even to be part of your practitioner's team. So I want to thank you, Jessica, so much for this fascinating talk, for the image, for whomever your client was that allowed us to dive deep into their eyeball and see, to see what we see and learn what we learn. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Congratulations on doing your first webinar. I'm sure.
Yeah, I made it through.
Doing many more.
Thank you, everyone, for putting up with me.
Well, I'll tell you, I do want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And we hope that you have learned more about iridology, about the connection of iridology, gut health, and how just looking at the eye can provide so much information when the person looking in is trained, is understanding, and knows what they're doing and has the experience like Jessica does. So thank you so much. And I wish you all a fantastic night, and we will see you at our
night, everyone.
Take care, everyone.